Good morning once again. For the delay, we had a lot of technical problems here with the server. I hope you're out there and you could log in. We can see that a lot of our speakers and participants now could come in, and we are now ready to start. I'd like to welcome you to the side event of the PEP conference. Let's give youth a voice. A very, very important topic we're talking about. We are very thankful to have a range of speakers with different backgrounds and countries, from academia to young activists of Fridays for Future. My name is Eva Pölzl, and I try to do the moderation during this webinar. And today's speakers are engaged in the field of health and environmentally friendly mobility for and with children and adults. More than that, they link these two topics and show us the value of it. And first of all, we are very proud to welcome Ms. Leonore Gewessler, Federal Ministry for Climate Action. And on behalf of Leonore Gewessler, I'd like to read a message to you she sent to us. Ms. Leonore Gewessler, Federal Ministry for Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology, sends greeting to you at the first of a total of 24 side events in the run-up to the 5th high-level ministerial meeting of the Transport, Health and Environment Pan-European Programme, which will be held next week. This side event on the subject of Let's Give Youth a Voice, Child and Youth-Friendly Green Mobility is a very special one. Some weeks ago, a youth dialogue started with 28 Austrian and international young people from 13 different countries. Participation of young people in the implementation of the WHO environment and health processes has a long tradition in Austria. So it was clear for her to support the involvement of young people all over Europe within the process of the preparation of the forthcoming 5th high-level ministerial meeting. In Austria, a lot of initiatives have been taken for involving children and youth organizations, schools and youth groups, in particular in climate policy and also environmentally friendly mobility. For this purpose, the ministry has launched special focus activities on child and youth-friendly mobility within funding programs to enable children and young groups to develop mobility projects. Some of them you will get to know today. She would like to thank all the young people for taking time to focus on the important topics for the future, in particular on healthy and green mobility. And of course, she is very much looking forward to the presentation of the results of these youth forums and the youth position paper next week. Thank you, Ms. Leonore Gewessler. And before we start with our first speakers this morning, I'd like to tell you that you can also ask questions and discuss with us. For the questions, please use the field chat. You can see it on the right side on your screen. Now the stage is yours, and so the stage is open for young Fridays for Future activists from Austria and Portugal. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Leo Zirwes, Mr. Ivo Wakounig, and Ms. Andreia Galvão, the Fridays for Future's Climate Protection and Mobility. A wonderful good morning to you.
Good morning, good day, everybody. We are Andreia, Ivo, this is me and Leo, and we are activists at Fridays for Future, where we spend most of our free time and our precious youth working for a livable future for us all. We're happy that we can contribute to this important dialogue and discuss with you the outcomes of the Youth Forum. Unfortunately, because it is not stressed often enough, we need to stress it once again. Our house is on fire. The urgency to solve the climate crisis has never been so important as it is now. We listen to what our scientists have been proclaiming for decades. According to the latest IPCC report, we have less than 7 years before we reach an irreversible planetary state. A lot of governments and world leaders have been trying to gain goodwill in the past few weeks and months by making promises to resolve the climate crisis without ever addressing the full magnitude of the whole problem. For instance, the European and the United States climate laws are evidence of unambitious goals. And to this we say, no more empty promises. Promises have to be kept. Agreements have to be kept. What is true for every matter of private law should be more than agreed upon when it comes to matters as important as the climate crisis. But where do we see this? Where do we find promises to be kept when it comes to the rare cases? It is attacked by attempts to water it down, or if it is even dismissed. But we have to regard what we promised, and we have to act upon that. We have to act upon the Paris Climate Agreement. The window to change everything is drastically low now. We know that this crisis reflects a system that is unjust at its essence. It is time to change it in order to prevent a civilizational catastrophe. Our future is in your hands. I would now like to give the word over to Andreia.
Thanks. We do not want the youth paper to end up in a drawer and be forgotten. What we want and what we demand is change. What we stand for is our future and our tomorrow. This is what makes us push and pull towards a sustainable and just future. A future in which we care about our planet because in the end, it's where we live and what is necessary for us to live and flourish. We will not be silenced, nor will be silenced. Now we hand this over to you, who are the officials and the decision makers, the leading heads of so many countries. You have in our hands our present and our future. In your hands are the tools to master this crisis. What you do will be watched and will be judged by the times to come. Our demand is threefold. 1, we do not want empty promises without real measures. 2, we want summits without action. 3, we do not want position papers without proposition to act. What we want and what we demand is a future in which life is possible. Next slide, please. We demand climate justice. Thank you.
So let me ask you, we are still waiting for Leo. Did anyone hear something from Leo, Ivo?
Unfortunately, not so far.
Fortunately, not so far. Okay.
His part was in the middle of the presentation. Now he's joining.
Now he's got in.
I'm
Super.
here.
Hi, Leo. Super.
Hi.
Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you.
I mean, just Leo, for your information, we just had the presentation. We didn't have the middle part, the second part.
Oh, okay. So I should just do my part, or
Yeah, let's do part 2.
Part 1.
Not part 2.
Oh, okay. Give me a moment. Transport and emissions account for around 16% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Each and every single year, over 400,000 people die prematurely from air pollution coming from the transport sector, and more than 1.35 million are killed on roadways. The failure of the failed transportation system is causing human suffering at this very moment, but moreover, it puts our common future in jeopardy.
It is about me, it is about us, it is affecting all of us. Today's meeting takes place under the title, Give Youth a Voice. We already have a voice. Kids and young people have been on the streets for over 3 years now, and politicians have heard our demands. But they didn't act, because short-term profits are more important than a livable future for all of us, the young people. It is therefore not a voice that we need, but we need to have a say. In 1 week, the 5th higher-level ministerial meeting of the Transport, Health and Environment Pan-European program, the PEP, will take place. We, the young people, whose future is at stake, worked on a position paper for child and youth-friendly mobility. It is not that we ask for action, but we demand action. I would like to give the word to Andreia now, but she already did her part, so I'll end
our presentation here.
Thank you to all of you. Thanks for your presentation. And yes, Andreia did it already, and we changed the time schedule a little bit, but thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this morning. And now we know why climate-friendly mobility is important to you and young people. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, at this point, this is the point where we like to introduce our first keynote speaker. This is Dr. Moshammer of the Medical University of Vienna. He's our first keynote speaker today, and he's the head of Department of Environmental Health and will now present aspects about healthy and unhealthy mobility for children and adolescents. Now, first question is, how does mobility affect young people? Good morning, Mr. Moshammer.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation. And you know, nearly everything has been said already by the Fridays for Future. I'm very grateful that they stated that it's not just giving them a voice, but they should have a say. I was asked to talk about mobility and the health aspects concerning young people. So just have to, yeah. There are lots of pathways how transport and mobility can affect people, and especially also young people. But because of time constraints, I will only talk about 3 examples. That's air pollution, noise, and lack of physical activity. Air pollution, especially the small children have, logically, small airways. So if there is an inflammation in the airways, even a small impact can have very large effects. Also, air pollution went down in Austria since 40 years now. And this was especially true for industrial sources. And while in the 1970s, 1980s, Professor Neuberger, my predecessor, still found an association between sulfur dioxide and hospital admissions and also mortality. This was no longer been possible later because especially these industrial emissions, which were described by sulfur dioxide, went down considerably, as you see. But we also looked at road traffic pollution, and nitrogen dioxide is a very good indicator for motorized traffic pollution. And you see this example from the city of Linz, where all the school children underwent lung function tests every year. And you see the districts where air pollution went down and also NO2 remained low. Here, the upper line, the lung growth in the children was significantly better and stronger and faster than in these districts that were affected by the growing motor transport and where NO2 levels remained high. Example, noise. Especially for children, we know that noise exposure affects their cognitive development. We know this from road traffic, but also from airports, that they have a reduction in the pace of learning, speech, reading, writing. We know about stress hormones, where especially the long-term stress, as seen from cortisol, is significantly higher when you live in a more noisy environment. We know about sleep disturbance, about self-reported health. I think one study, rather old study, nearly 20 years now, from the Tyrol, really shows that it's not only noise, it's a combination between noise exposure and individual susceptibility. Professor Lercher here looked at children who were born low weight and normal weight, and the red one, the children born prematurely or with low birth weight. And these are the more susceptible children, and in these you see a strong and linear correlation. The higher the noise level, the poorer the performance at school. So it's a combination. It's not all people who are affected, but it's the most susceptible ones. So noise and all environmental exposures are clearly also an issue of environmental justice. And my last example is physical activity. Much too often we have the freeway for the cars, and we confine our children into cages where they can play. And we examined school children. We looked at children who went always on their own to the school by foot or by bicycle, those that were brought by car from the parents, sometimes or always, and both in the reported health status here, but also in other measurements, really found significant differences, that those children who came to school actively had better health, performed better at school, had better lung function, and felt healthier. So to conclude, mobility is important. It's important for adults, and it's important for the individual development of the children. But the mobility opportunities must fit to the need of the persons. We must not adapt our children to the transport system. We must adapt the system to the children. There are multiple ways how a mismatched system has adverse effects on our children, and because children have a long life expectancy still ahead of them, even small effects have long-lasting adverse outcomes. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moshammer. Thank you for your lecture, and I hope you're going to join us.
I'll stay here, yes. Thank you.
So, John, super. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Now, I like to say hello to Tim Gill. Tim Gill is from Great Britain. A very good morning. It's very early in Great Britain. Hi.
Good morning, Eva. It is
Hi,
not.
Good morning.
It is not so early now. And
it's not
thank
so
you.
early because we had a delay. Thank you for joining this webinar. And let me just explain what you tell us now. It's about more of child-friendly planning and design. And the question is, can child-friendly planning and design save cities and regions?
Yes, that's right. I will just see if I can get my slideshow up.
Yes.
Hope you can see that. So thank you so much for inviting me. I should say hello from London. And my country may have left the European Union, but many of us here in the UK are strong supporters of the need for collective international action. I'm going to share with you really the main message from my new book. You can see the title here, Urban Playground, How Child-Friendly Planning and Design Can Save Cities. And it really picks up on the two aspects we've already heard from the previous speakers, the voice of children, and thanks to Leo, Ivo, and Andreia for starting the event, and also the reasons why this matters, not just to children, but to all of us. But when we're thinking about children's lives, I think a good place to start is to think about our own childhoods, those of us for whom childhood is some time away, and to think about the kind of relationship we had with the places we grew up in. So this next slide, my first slide, brings home a nice point about how childhood has changed. And what you can see here is a map that maps out what you might call the roaming range or the home territory of 4 children, and they're 8 years old. But they're 4 children who are in 4 generations of the same family, and they all grew up in the same city. So really what you can see here is what I call the shrinking horizons of childhood, the way that the roaming range shrinks with each generation. It starts with the great-grandfather covering most of the city, and then you can see at the end here the son today who is just allowed to go to the end of his street. And what's fascinating is that I've seen other examples from other European cities, from a Swedish city, from Ternat in Belgium, from Vienna indeed, and from Dublin, all showing the same story of how children's lives have become more limited and constrained. And I think this is one of the most important and one of the most underexplored changes in the nature of childhood. And it gives you the key to the story and the message from my book. So I'm going to look at what I mean by child-friendly planning, why I think this idea matters, and how we can make it happen. And I'm drawing on some research and visits that I've made to about 12 cities all around Europe and North and South America. And these are all cities that have taken seriously the goal, if you like, of expanding children's horizons, of making our neighborhoods, our built environment, better for children to get around and to play. So we'll start with what is child-friendly planning. And if we ask ourselves what makes a neighborhood work well for families to live in, this is work from the Canadian planner Brent Toderian, and he says that there are really 3 pillars for family-friendly neighborhoods. The first is housing. You can see if you don't have housing that works for families, then families just will have nowhere to live in a neighborhood. You also need good services, schools, childcare. But it's this 3rd pillar, the public realm, that I think is most interesting. And this is where children, if you like, step out of their houses and step out of their schools and claim their right as citizens. So that's what my book focuses on, the public realm, the space between the buildings. And I draw on the work of the Finnish spatial planner and academic Marketa Kitta, who's based at Aalto University, who talks about child-friendly planning and child-friendly places having 2 dimensions. And one dimension is lots of things to do. Of course, we all want to live in a lively neighborhood where there are parks and play spaces and where nature is nearby. But there's a 2nd dimension, which is mobility. It's no good having lots of nice places to go to in a neighborhood if you as a child cannot get to them, or if you're dependent upon your parents. So both of these dimensions are crucial. It's only where you have both lots of things to do, lots of choice, and good mobility that you're in that child-friendly quadrant. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples from different cities of what this looks like. My first is the city of Freiburg and the district of Vauban, an eco-suburb in this city. And you can see the photo there. It's apartment living. It's a medium density place. But the key thing about Vauban is that it's in effect a car-free district. Very few families own cars. And if you do own a car, well, you have to park your car in one of a number of car parks on the edge of the district. There is great public transport, so very few people need to have cars. And so what happens is the whole of the space between the buildings in this district is available for public space. It's available for play, for socializing. And I visited this neighborhood twice, and I can tell you that when I go, you see people of all ages, children, little children, bigger children, older people, enjoying and getting around the neighborhood on foot and playing in the parks. And the streets are very, very friendly for walking and cycling. So in my book, I pulled together some of the key functions, if you like, the key design features of a place like Vauban. I'm not going to read them out here, but the diagram is there for you to look at afterwards, to really set out how the urban design and planning features come together to make this district child-friendly. My second city is a city with an interesting story to tell, and this is Rotterdam. And Rotterdam became interested in child-friendliness because about 15, 16 years ago, it came bottom of a survey of the best cities to bring up a child in the Netherlands. And the city's leaders realized that that is not a place you want to be, that families who could were leaving the city. And so it put in place several programs to make neighborhoods better for children and families. And if you like, it was retrofitting. It was installing some of the same features we saw in Vauban. It was taming the traffic, bringing in more nature, opening up schoolyards, improving play areas, adding traffic calming, to add a layer across the pilot neighborhoods so that they were better places for children to get around and to play and see their friends. And so they found that indeed in the neighborhoods that they targeted, families were starting to move back into these neighborhoods. So those are two cities that give you a flavor of what I mean by child-friendly approach to neighborhoods. When I looked at all of the cities and I dug down to find out why they were interested in this topic, I found three broad clusters of interest. So one group of cities, like Rotterdam, were actually quite interested in their economy and in their demography. And they wanted to have a balanced economy and to keep families in the city. There's a second group of cities that saw links between child-friendliness and sustainability. And I think this is really interesting for today's talk, that in short, if you ask yourself what a child-friendly neighborhood looks like, it's green, it's compact, it's easy to get around. It looks like a sustainable neighborhood. And so if you're trying to build the case for sustainability, you can make these points about how beneficial it is for children and families. And then there was a third group of cities for whom the focus was on children's health and children's rights, and some of the messages that we heard earlier from Dr. Moshammer. But one of the interesting things about the cities I looked at is that many of these cities had more than one rationale, more than one reason for becoming more child-friendly. They could see win-wins. And I think this is really powerful, that the insight that a child-friendly lens has a wider benefits. And we'll see more about that in a minute. But one of the key insights here is that if we take the time to ask children and young people what they like and what they don't like about cities and neighborhoods, well, what they tell us really maps very closely onto those two dimensions. They talk about place, but they also talk about mobility and free movement. Sadly, we know of the impact, the adverse impact of poor planning and design. And again, Dr. Moshammer was speaking about this, and it is to my shame, I'm speaking to you from a city where we had a case where it is now legally recorded, it is part of the record of the death of a child, that death was caused by air pollution and unacceptable levels. And this Ella Adu Kissi Debra lived only meters away from one of the busiest streets in London. But we can also see health impacts in terms of road danger. And really, we've normalized a life where the threat from traffic just becomes something we almost no longer pay any attention to. But it is the leading cause of death for 5 to 29-year-olds around the world. Even in high-income countries with good public safety records like Sweden, 1 in 9 of the deaths of children over 5 is caused by road danger. And there is a strong social gradient, so the poorest children are much more likely to be victims. So if you pull this together, you have the idea that Enrique Peñalosa, the mayor of Bogota, who transformed that city, shares with us, that children are a kind of indicator species. And I think this is not just a figure of speech. It is true that if you go to a neighborhood like Vauban and you see children of different ages active and visible in the public realm of that neighborhood, then that is a sign of the health of that habitat, just as it is the sign of the health of a river if you see salmon swimming up the river. So, how do we make all this happen? The first point, I'm sure we will hear this very often during this summit, the challenges are moral and political ones. They are not technical ones. We need to reframe and reprioritize who is the focus of our planning and our design. The second point, one of the strongest lessons from the cities I visited is that the good things that are happening in these cities happen not just because of policies, but also because of people, because of activists, and also because of officials within municipalities at the city level who can make a difference. I also must admit that this is an emerging idea, this idea of child friendliness. So we need to be opportunistic. We need to look for where there is change happening in a city, a new development, a regeneration program, new transport policies, and to make the case for children's voices and a children's lens to be brought into play. And the final point is, I've already hinted at it, that thinking about children helps to show how we can address some complex issues that cities have to face. Crucially, the challenge of the climate crisis, but also of maintaining a sustainable economy in the face of global pressures. So just this slide here is an example of how it says here, how do you make a street into a skate park? Well, all you need to do is stop the traffic and then the children can play. Makes the point that who and what streets are for is a political question. Here is my point about the involvement of children and young people. And again, we heard this earlier. We know children's views and voices. Actually, we need to have a clear understanding of how we can harness their energy and their insights. And we need to get some good ways of doing that and focus on the difference that our changes will make to their lives. But it is our job as adults to act on the information and what the science is telling us. And if we do that, then we can add a child-friendly layer to the work that's happening. This is an example of a major regeneration scheme in Ghent, in Belgium, where there was a lot of investment in this poor neighborhood, disadvantaged part of the city. And part of that work involved threading child-friendly interventions, improvements to public spaces, connecting these spaces and schools with pedestrian-friendly routes. So my final message is one that's actually a quote from a Norwegian researcher that I spoke to. I think it really brings home why this is so important, that if we think about what a green city is, it's more child-friendly. A child-friendly city is more green than a car-friendly city. And the politicians really need to wake up to the fact that if we amplify children's voices and have a clearer focus on their stake in responding to the climate crisis, then we can build stronger support and build a clearer consensus about the changes we all know we need to make to give cities and the planet a future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you. Let me ask you a question finally. If you were a mayor, what would be the first or the most important thing to do?
I think we really need to tackle the dominance of the car in cities. Okay. And everything else, good things happen from that. If we don't do that, we will never make cities child-friendly.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tim. I hope you're going to join us.
I will.
And you will stay, and thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
If you have questions, you can write it into the chat. Did we get any? No, not yet, but you can send questions to us and I will read it for you. And but now we have our next speaker, and originally there were both speakers or two speakers, but unfortunately Petra Völkel from the Ministry of Climate Action cannot be with us, and so I'd like to welcome Maria Zögernitz from the Climate Alliance Austria. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning.
And,
Hello.
Maria shows us and is talking about long-term initiatives, mobility management for children, parents and schools, guidelines, cycling action plan. A lot of things to do, a lot of work to do. Maria, the stage is yours. Good morning.
Yeah, hello, good morning. I introduce 5 long-term initiatives that are funded or in behalf of the Federal Ministry of Climate Action. And first, this is the European Week. There is a session on Wednesday. Then this is funded by the Federal Ministry of Climate Action. Then the Green Footprint campaign. This is runs since 2003 in Austria, and it's a European-wide. Then the third is the klimaaktiv mobil, as a climate-active mobility management for children, parents, and schools. Then the fourth, the cycling program, and the fifth are guidelines and regulations for child-friendly planning. The guidelines are developed for planners, the fifth one, and they are important to a child-friendly planning regulation. These guidelines are very, very important for planners, that they have to know what they have to do, so I say. Additionally, a special guideline relating to the guidelines child-friendly mobility gives specific ideas and background knowledge to planners and municipalities. And this guideline we issued this year. Now to the mobility management for children, parents and school. It's run since 2005. And 500 educational institutions across Austria have already been advised and accompanied. And this project involves more than 80,000 children, and is a contribution to the PEP, the Pan-European Program. How does it work? Mobility advisors accompany schools and kindergartens for a school year, and schools and kindergartens can participate voluntarily and free of charge. There are mobility advisors in all 9 regions of Austria. Thank you to my colleagues from Climate Alliance Austria. The regions Salzburg, Tyrol, Upper Austria and Vorarlberg finance further mobility advices of kindergartens and schools. So in sum, we have 500 kindergartens and schools that already took part at this program. The innovations from the schools and kindergartens go to the municipalities and also to the ministry. So, for example, the Schulstraße, school street, should be established in Austrian-wide. For all pedagogues, we have a bunch of different offers. So, for example, the Sustainable Mobility Kit for kindergartens. And there, a pedagogue said, after he had booked this, after we had worked with the Sustainable Mobility Toolkit, some children refused to get into the car because this is bad for the environment. A mother now walks the child to kindergarten every day. Furthermore, we have the Pedibus package with guidelines, safety vests and signs, and diverse educational material and guidelines. Also a postcard with painting competition. You can visit the website with more materials or subscribe to a newsletter. It's only in German. We also have seminars, mobility analysis, and, for example, pedometers. So, Climate Active has worked out suitable so-called soft and hard measures for educational institutions and municipalities. Experiences from schools and kindergartens have been summarized in a guide. It contains 45 of the most popular action tips for and from educational institutions. That was the mobility management program. and now to the Cycling Action Program, which is launched 2020 and started with a stakeholder process. More than 100 stakeholders are involved in this process, and this leads in 40 measures to be discussed in the field of infrastructure, bicycle, legal framework, awareness raising, and organization. The first measure for 2021 is a bicycle course for all children in primary school. So 340,000 children in 18,000 cycling courses get involved in bicycle and bicycling. And this enables children to active mobility on bike. This is a very broad program and is run by the Austrian Energy Agency. So for further information about the European Mobility Week, we invite you to the side event on the 12th of May. And to end this my presentation, I want to say we urgently need many stakeholders to shift the paradigm for child-friendly and clean mobility. Also please be part of it. To all these actors that are involved in this program and in this wide and great measures. Also please be part of it. Thank you. For further information, you can visit the website or ask me in the chat.
Maria, thank you very much. Interesting content. Thank you so much. And you're going to stay. I know that you're going to do this. Before I call our next speaker, let me ask if she is still here. Olga, can you hear me? Olga Yakimenko. Are you in? Yeah, we can see you. Yes, we can see you. So it's time for a game, I would say. Well, I'd like to welcome Olga from Petersburg, St. Petersburg, and please tell us more about the project Game of Goals that brings together creative players to find bold new projects and solutions to achieve sustainable economic growth. Let's play a game. Good morning, Olga. Hello.
To everyone, greetings to all participants from St. Petersburg. Can you see my screen? Hello. Yes, it works great. I thank the organizers for the opportunity to present the Game of Goals initiative, our first accelerator in Russia to achieve 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Our task is to involve in our gameplay as many participants as possible from different countries and cities. Therefore, today I'm glad to share with you our initiative and hope that we will jointly hold an international Game of Goals event just like during the high-level ministerial meeting of Transport, Health and Environment. And you can also watch the GOG finals on sustainable transport development today here on this platform. So the main goal of Game of Goals is to develop understanding of the sustainable development concepts and align activities with 17 development goals. The 70th SDG business game is looking for both new projects and solutions to achieve sustainable economic growth that will not lead to depletion of natural resources, but will both benefit humanity and preserve and multiply our national wealth. Together with our partners, we are looking for out-of-the-box solutions, allowing the game participants to get involved in the UN Agenda 2030 and also to take part in implementing the projects that contribute to achieving the SDGs. This is of great importance, and the Sustainable Development Strategy is not an abstract concept, but aims to specifically improve many areas of life of everyone and playing GOG in the best way to understand it. So we have very simple rules. For the first, participants are divided into teams of 5 or 6 people. When we're playing the online game of goals, it can be 10 till 10 people. Each team draws a card with a country and its SDGs performance indicators. Then each participant of the team draws a badge and receives the corresponding minister's portfolio and resource management authority. We have a ministry game. And then each team selects one of the 17 goals to implement. So we have three steps: project development, project presentation, and voting for the best project. During the project development, we haven't received the necessary cards. The teams begin to develop a project that contributes to achieving the SDGs selected for one of the countries. The teams get support and consultation from our mentors. The project is developed via a special template. Then during the presentation, each team showcases the importance and competitiveness of the projects for achieving the SDGs selected at the beginning of the game. And then all mentors, experts, and team members vote for the projects they like using counters. Here you can see our template. It is easy but very useful for creating the project with very good result. We have here inputs, actions, funding sources, focus group, products, results, and impacts. So on this slide you can see GOG by numbers. We have now more than 15 organizers, more than 400 participants, more 60 projects and 65 mentors, and more than 80 teams during our 1 year playing game of goals. We invite you to visit the site, our web platform, where clips, projects, and more information, detailed description of our initiative are posted. You can see it here. Thank you very much for your attention and hope to play with you.
Thank you, Ilona. Yeah, we enjoyed it very much. And if you want to hear more, Olga has an own webinar, starts at 10:30 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Olga. Sorry, I said Ilonka's. Very sorry. Olga.
Yes, it's very good. Thank you very
have
much.
fun and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Speaker now is Ilonka Horvath. Now we have Ilonka Horvath. Ilonka Horvath is currently based at the Department 7A4 Health Promotion and Prevention in the Federal Ministry of Social Affairs, Health and Consumer Protection. And Maria's lecture is now about basis and influences factors of childhood healthcare. Good morning, Ilonka. She's muted. Ilonka?
Good morning.
You press the mute button. Now we
Good
can
morning.
hear you.
Yeah. Sorry.
The stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning also from my side, from Vienna. My name is Ilonka Horvath, and I'm representing the Federal Ministry of Social Affairs, Healthcare and Consumer Protection, Department of Health Promotion and Prevention. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity today to shortly illustrate the importance of active mobility, in particular for younger population groups, also from a public health perspective. And I would also like to highlight the particular efforts of the Ministry of Health in this field of action. So, okay. So why is active mobility actually as relevant when it comes to health policy? As we have, I think we've heard today already that physical activity has a great influence on the physical as well as mental health of individuals, and also in particular when it comes to younger members of our society. To illustrate this, I would like to start with a general framing on health and what determines individual health. So this graphic shows, you might be familiar with this graphic, but I think it is a very crucial and basic one we always refer to, and it illustrates these determinants very clearly. So what you can see here is that the more commonly considered factors, such as like commonly with health considered factors such as access and the use of the healthcare services, often have less of an importance, whereas other factors influences health to a much higher extent, and they are generally most of them are often outside of the general health sector. So what does it mean? So to a large extent, factors such as where we live, the state of our environment, our income situation, or the educational level, or also like social factors as the relationships with friends and families have a considerable impact on health. And I think this kind of graphic shows that quite also the interconnections between the or make these interconnections between different factors or determinants quite obvious. This for the Ministry of Health, it is therefore important or crucial to, on the one hand, actively promote health, which means not only focusing on behavioral and individual factors, but also on structural aspects like living conditions, or when it comes to physical activity, for example, also on spatial planning, and to raise the awareness and action in those policy areas outside the healthcare sector. And this is the approach we call health in all policies. I would shortly like to highlight two policy papers from Austria. One is the one are the Austrian health targets. It was based on the understanding of the health determinants and on the health in all policies approach. The Ministry of Health started a broad cross-sectoral and participatory process to define 10 national health targets. The process started in like 10 years ago in 2011, where about or more than 40 stakeholders were involved. This process is a still ongoing topic, and it is an ongoing development on the one hand, and also an ongoing surveillance led by a steering committee for each of the 10 targets. In regard to active mobility, especially 3 targets into play. It is the first goal, provision of health promoting living and working conditions for all population groups through cooperation of all societal and policy areas. We have goal 4, securing sustainable natural resources and healthy environments for future generations. And goal 8, the promotion of healthy, safe exercise and activity in everyday life through appropriate environments. Second policy paper I would like to highlight in my presentation today is the Austrian Child and Youth Health Strategy. Within this Austrian Child and Youth Health Strategy, there's a clear understanding that active mobility is of particular interest when it comes to the younger generation. And just to quote the mission statement, good health of children and adolescents is the basis for lifelong health of population. This requires conditions and frameworks that facilitates a healthy growing up. And I think this is a very important point to highlight. It is a joint effort of the health sector together with all policy areas to be a responsibility for the health of children and adolescents. Under the topic healthy developments, there is one particular goal defined called enabling and promoting physical activity among children and young people. And all three thematic priorities are reflected also in the National Action Plan on Physical Activity, together with concrete measures. Maybe, sorry, I forgot. The thematic areas have a priority on promoting daily activity, improving opportunities for physical activity in kindergarten and schools, and push non-competitive sports for all children. And finally, in the closing, I would like to present one of many projects in Austria and which has been implemented to promote active mobility among young people. The project was called Wir bewegen was, which could be translated somehow as we move something or we make a difference. It was started in 2018, running until 2020, and was funded by the Fonds Gesundes Österreich, which is the National Competence Center and Central Funding Office for Health Promotion, in cooperation with the Austrian Association of Cities and Towns. And the project linked young people and experts on urban spatial planning, aiming to increase opportunities for active and intermodal mobility for young people, with a focus on 3 cities. And the project resulted in several already realized and some future projects in 2021. Yeah, thank you for your attention. We are always happy when you get in touch with you if you have any questions. And of course, we are also from the Ministry of Health, we are always interested in cross-sectoral cooperation, because we think that's a crucial thing of making a change and making a difference. Thank you.
Ilonka, thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to all our speakers because you were perfectly in time. We have a perfect timetable right now. So now we can do a little coffee break, I think. It's a good time for a coffee break. And we are back. We get back to you at 10:30. And yeah, looking forward seeing and hearing experts and interesting lectures about youth mobility and give youth a voice. See you later in 15 minutes and enjoy your break, and we'll get back to you in time. Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Miriam Ecker and I'm from Austria.
Bonjour, my name is Leo, I'm from France.
Olá, my name is Vasilius. I'm from Portugal.
Guten Tag, my name is Daniela Wagner. I'm from Karlsruhe, which is a city in Germany.
Salut, my name is Timo and I live in Switzerland.
Servus, my name is Magdalena. I am from Austria.
Zdravo svima, my name is Bojan Lučić and I'm coming from Republic of Serbia.
Γεια σας. My name is Stavroula Zakharoudou. I'm from Thessaloniki.
Hi, my name is Anurag Koyada and I'm a student from the United Kingdom.
Hello, my name is Catherine and I am from Poland.
Bonjour, my name is Hannah and I'm from France.
For me, youth mobility means commute closer with technologically simpler ways
improving the quality of life of young people.
For me, it's essential in improving public health and climate protection.
As a Minister of Transport, my first action would be building a better infrastructures for walkers and cyclists.
My first priority would be to educate and motivate both parents and children.
To expand the public transport in a way that enables young people to be independently mobile without a driver license.
Will be to promote the use of and investment in alternative and emerging technologies in mobility management.
My wish regarding youth mobility for the future is to make it more accessible to everyone.
The promotion of cycling in all sectors.
Needs to be open to those who want to learn and gain experience of the world.
And I also wish that people my age want to travel more and understand the size of our vast earth we live on, so that they can start to think outside of themselves.
Is that young people are not only given a voice, but also listened to.
Hello and good morning. My name is Eva Pölzl and I'm the moderator of this webinar. Thank you for joining us this morning. I hope you had a good and comfortable coffee break. Yes, that's what we did the last 50 minutes, and now we are back. We get back to you and welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us, all our speakers and all the participants. Give use a voice. That's our topic today, and this is the first webinar. And I'd like to welcome the chair of the PEP. This must be Mr. Thaler. It is Mr. Thaler. I hope he's with us right now. Good morning, Robert. Can you see us? Can you hear us? Unfortunately, we can't see him right now. Unfortunately, he's not logged in, maybe. No. Robert, you're not here. Okay, we tried to connect you, but on behalf of Federal Ministry for Climate Action, Environment and Energy, I'd like to welcome Ms. Alexandra Dörfler. Alexandra, can you hear me? Can we hear you? That's the most important question right now. Hello, Alexandra. Okay. We might have some technical problems. Alexandra, you can hear me. You wrote it to me. Thank you so much. But we can't see you on the screen and we can't hear you right now. Yes, just a few minutes or just a few seconds. 2 minutes, a few minutes would be too long. We tried to connect Sandra. Yeah, you need to ask to come on screen, please. Now we can hear you, we can see you. Good morning, Alexandra. What are your impressions of this webinar this morning? How are you?
I got a lot of impressions, even as I'm not long in that topic right now, but I found the speeches I've already heard very interesting. We are waiting for Mr. Thaler, and as I see, he's just online. He's just gotten online. So I think he will be ready to give his welcome notes to everybody.
That's great. Thank you, Alexandra. Good morning, Robert. How are you?
Good morning. Nice.
Good to see you. Good to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. For all participants, nice weather in Vienna. Perfect time to come here. But unfortunately, you are only online, but hopefully also inspiring.
Yeah, but we're all sitting in our offices.
Exactly.
We can't see the weather outside.
Definitely.
But we have a lot of important work to do this morning, Robert. Let me ask you, why is it so important to you to involve young people to these processes?
I mean, that's an easy question because we talk about the future, and all about what's the PEP doing is making decisions and trying to set activities and to launch initiatives to create a better future than today, especially regarding mobility. We all know that we have big challenges. I just I just say climate neutrality is not disappeared. It's still there. So we have this big challenge ahead of us. Austria, for example, wants to be climate neutral by 2040. And at least in one generation, we have to change our whole mobility system. And secondly, we have now for 1.5 years, we have an extraordinary situation with the pandemic. So we have also a health challenge, not only one challenge, but two and many more. So in all what we are doing here, and we are responsible in the ministries of all the member states of the PEP for delivering solutions and delivering initiatives that makes the life in the future better. And that's our major approach. And therefore, I'm deeply convinced that the voice of the young people is very important, because it's about you, it's about your well-being. And therefore, we hope that with this small initiative to give you a voice in this process, this will also help in the future that your views, your insights, your wishes are better reflected in government work. So, Eva, are you here?
Yes, I'm here again. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for your words for the beginning. Let me say, Maria Lettner is waiting. She's from the National Youth Council, and the stage is open for her. Robert, you will listen to her, you will join us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible, okay?
Exactly.
Thank you, Robert. Maria, good morning. We can hear you, we can see you. That's the best thing today. Maria, you work as a policy officer at the Secretariat of the Austrian National Youth Council, and you're responsible for issues related to sustainable development, including climate crisis and youth participation. And what is the mission of the Austrian Youth Council? Can you tell us?
Yes, of course. Thanks for the invitation. The Austrian National Youth Council is the legal representative body for children and young people in Austria, and supports the rights and interests of people under 30 years of age. In Austria, that's about 3 million people. And when it comes to youth policies, we have the status of a social partner. The Austrian National Youth Council focuses on the political, social, economic, and cultural interests of young people, and presents them to politicians, the media, and the public. Our members are made up of almost 60 youth organizations, which cover a broad spectrum of youth work. They promote religious, ecological, political, and cultural engagement of young people. And our General Assembly recently elected a new board and new presidents for the next 2 years. I think that's an interesting fact to know. The members of our board and the team of presidents are all under 30 years old, and most of them are volunteers in their organizations and in our board. Also this year we celebrate our 20th anniversary. We are very proud of what has been achieved so far, but we, of course, we see a lot of need for action, especially when it comes to ensuring that young people's interests are bindingly included in the political processes and decisions.
Maria, let me ask you now, what are current activities in the field of climate policies and youth participation?
First of all, we are really happy to be part of the International Youth Forums in the run-up to the Ministerial Conference next week. Our UN Youth Delegate, which was included in the video before, Miriam Egger, will report on this later in this webinar. And then at this point, I would just like to emphasize that the position paper, the youth position paper of the Youth Forums, is for sure an important input for our further activities. We are currently organizing a campaign tackling SDG 13, climate action. The campaign has the claim "Time for Change," hashtag Climate for Change. With Time for Change, we advocate for changes that need to be prioritized now from a youth perspective. We focus on mobility, energy consumption, and of course, participation of young people. One of the main goals, therefore, is to enable young people to present their demands to politicians, as they did within this webinar also. and to promote the exchange between youth and politics on climate issues. Our campaign website provides practical information for youth workers, supports young people with their project ideas, and collects climate mail from young people. Unfortunately, the website is only available in German, but I could post the link anyway in the chat. Might be interesting to have a look with a translation tool. Highlights of our campaign will be a special climate prize for young people and a big dialogue event for youth and politics taking place this autumn. And we are very happy that our Minister, Leonore Gewessler, already has agreed to participate in this event. We already finished the guidebook for climate communication with young people. It deals with everyday conversations and shows how climate issues can be linked to the lives of young people, especially in the field of youth work. And we're currently developing a handbook for climate dialogue events, like we do one ourselves in autumn, dialogue events for with youth and politics. And the handbook should help to ensure that as many events as possible, whether small or large, contribute to qualitative youth participation in the field of climate policy. So if you're interested in our activities, please don't hesitate to contact me. We will manage to bridge language gaps, even if our material is totally in German. I'm happy to give you some information in English.
We are interested. Thank you very much, Maria Lettner. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Maria, from the National Youth Council, thank you for your lecture and your words. Thank you. From Austria, now we are going to Portugal, and we have now the possibility to get some or more information about Portuguese project mobility for children and youth and participation for the EEHYC, an important role at the PEP. Sorry for the misunderstanding. And they have also participated at all youth forums. And now, hopefully we are connected. Yes, we are, to Mr. Antonio Marquez Pinto. A wonderful good morning.
Hello, can you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you, Antonio. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Unfortunately, and contrary to the most of the time, today the weather in Portugal is not very good. It's raining, but it's an happy day for me and for young people across Europe to participate in such an important event. I would like to speak some minutes about the context in my country. Can you see my I would like to share my presentation.
Yeah, everything is fine with your presentation. We can see it, we can hear you, and we are glad you're here. You can start.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon. I would like to speak very briefly about the Portuguese inventions and projects in this field. Just to make a small contextualization. Okay. So we all agree that Portugal is a small country compared to other countries in Europe, and that is precisely why we have the possibility to visit the country from north to south in one day, which is around 700 kilometers. So by the early 70s, Portugal faced economic growth with increasing consumption and the purchase of new automobiles. Set the priority for improvements in transportation. In the following 2 decades after joining the European Economic Community, the country built many motorways, and today we have almost 70,000 off-road network, of which almost 3,000 kilometers are part of a system of 44 motorways. Opened in 1944, the first motorway which linked Lisbon to the National Stadium was a very innovative project that made Portugal one of the first countries in the whole world to establish a motorway. So we have a good amount of commitment in terms of transportation. So Also, a few other tracks were created in the decades of 60s and 70s. It was only after the beginning of 80s that a large-scale motorway construction was implemented. We have many highways. You have to pay a toll in many of them. We also have the longest bridge in Europe, Vasco da Gama Bridge, with more than 12 kilometers. Continental Portugal's territory is serviced by 4 international airports. They are located near the main cities. The national railway system extends throughout the country and into Spain. The rail transport of goods is accomplished by almost 3,000 kilometers of railway lines, of which more than 1,400 kilometers are electrified and about 900 allow train speeds greater than 120 kilometers per hour. We have 7 major seaports located in different cities. We also have 2 subway systems in the 2 biggest metropolitan areas in Lisbon and Porto, each one with about 35 kilometers of lines. And in Portugal, Lisbon tram services, they have been supplied by the same company for almost 1 century. And in Porto, there is only a tram network that is, unfortunately, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people, used only for tourist purposes. Just a small clue. This was constructed the first time in 1895, and it was the first tram service in the Iberian Peninsula. All major cities and towns, of course, they have their own local urban transport network as well as taxi. Talking about sustainable mobility in Portugal or in another country in the world corresponds to talking about the most important functions of cities and towns today. With increasing concentration of population in urban centers, a huge pressure falls on the shoulders of mobility in cities. Portugal, however, is the only country in Europe that does not have a sustainable mobility plan, since the government is not giving guidance to municipalities. And although there is a great advance in terms of smart cities, we continue to have infrastructures that are not adapted to contemporary mobility. And if this year is not the year of a paradigm shift, we have a big problem. So for such a change, it is vital to change the mobility habits, but also to implement a more integrated and planned measure by the policymakers. So according to this report that you can see here from the European Union's Committee on Transport and Tourism, which was published in September, the use of public transport has decreased dramatically following the impact of the coronavirus. Citizens prefer to use private vehicles, namely cars and bicycles, or when possible to walk. In Portugal in particular, according to some reports of the movement trends, due to the need to move, the Portuguese resorted more to travel by car, owned or rented. The demand for public transport decreased by 35%, while the mobility to work also decreased, but not so much. It was around 70% for the same period. The differences in mobility in Lisbon are even more drastic. From March to December, there was a reduction of 41% in mobility trends in public transport hubs. A greater drop that was seen in the workplace, which was around 26%. And in terms of alternative transport, that what is most important for me. After an initial descent, the number of rented bicycles rose faster than mobility on foot or by car, which shows that Lisbon is no exception. And in addition, according to other data sources, the demand for bicycles grew 500% in Portugal between May and July. which led to the depletion of the overall bicycle stock. Portuguese children and youth are already committed and understand that sprawling cities that cater to the automobile are, to a larger extent, the result of government choices to foster road building, car infrastructures, aiming at the spread of economic development. So in line with that, there has been, from the youth side, pressure for local authorities to choose a different future. In Portugal, the transport sector is one of the most relevant sectors in terms of revenues, and that is a problem. Anyway, in the recent years, the central government is giving more competences to local authorities, alleging that municipalities are, and they are in fact, closer to city citizens and are better prepared to answer their needs. However, in most of the cases, the municipalities remain committed to the old car-centered vision, giving more priority to private car infrastructure investments. And unfortunately, between 2000 and 2018, the car ownership in Portugal increased almost 100 vehicles, from 469 to 528 cars per 1,000 people. However, things are slowly changing, and there are several best practices in Portuguese municipalities that can be pointed out. Public transport system has been rising both in expansion and capacity. Implementation of intermodality and multimodal tickets, more and better public transportation infrastructures, interactive information, alternative transportation, among others. Lending, reselling, giving, swapping, renting are all modes that can help to increase the usage and duration of resource-consuming goods, such as passenger cars. And observing the biggest cities in Portugal for the last 3 years, there have been several attempts to disrupt the private car model, like electric cars, scooter sharing, or conventional or even e-bike sharing. I will speak about them by the end of this presentation. Additionally, for example, Lisbon is promoting alternatively food vehicles by boasting one of the world's largest electric vehicle charging point networks, with more than 500 of such points in the cities. A third of the cities or municipalities, they have already made or outsourced a mobility study or implemented mobility plans. Nevertheless, the rate of municipalities that have assessed their citizens and overall the youth citizen satisfaction regarding mobility issues is quite low. Municipalities still have, and this is important, the ones that have a larger and more intensive young people, human capital, with the human capital departments in charge of mobility issues, are those that are more responsive to the sustainable mobility problematic. Having all this in mind, the government has been adopting some welcome policies, and although the funds budget for electric mobility has stopped at around 4 million euros, the government wants to give a new impetus to electric vehicle deliveries within cities. Aid for the purchase of electric bicycles will be reinforced this year, and support for cars is just reserved for private individuals. So there will be 3 million euros for the purchase of electric cars. They are like 600,000 euros than last year, because companies no longer have access to support to buy normal passenger vehicles. Each individual may receive an aid of €3,000 for a passenger car with a maximum of €62,000, and there are 700 of these checks available at the moment. In 2020, likewise, like in 2020, there will be €900,000 to buy electric vans and buy the incentive for light commercial vehicles for single individuals with business activities or companies, doubled to the €6,000. And even more important, each applicant may receive the aid up to 2 times. The purchase of bicycles.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I have to say, please mind the timetable. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Just 5 more minutes
to go. Thank you.
Okay. So there are a few more incentives. Let's speak only about the ones in the bicycle sector. So let's go directly to the Portuguese inventions. That's why we are here. So in Portugal, it was created an index that measures the degree of preparation of municipalities for the use of bicycles as a transport mode, revealing a ranking of friendliness of Portuguese municipalities towards the bicycle. This tool was developed by the Center for Research in Architecture, Urbanism and Design from the Architecture Faculty of Lisbon. To reach the final classification, the index takes into account 5 key dimensions: the slope, the built environment, infrastructures, the political commitment, and the bicycle utilization. Within this, there are 12 indicators to collect individually. And as an example, for example, in dimension regarding bicycles utilization, the weight of the bicycle in municipalities, modal distribution, the rate of human and young human within the bicycle users, and the rate of active modes of transportation. There is still a lot to do, but there are some pioneering projects very famous in Portugal, which you can see here on the right side. For example, in Aveiro, you can rent. They are located in 20 parks in strategic points of the city, bicycles. They're even in bus and rail terminals, and you can rent them for the whole day for free. The same thing in Vila do Conde, Vila Nova de Famalicão, Caldas da Rainha, Almeirim. Each one of these projects has a specific name. Even in my own city, as you can see, Toupeiras, it's in my hometown, Santo Tirso. Those bikes belong to a bicycle sharing program. They are for free, especially dedicated for people above 14 years old. So all these cities, but many others, but especially these ones I've mentioned, they are the best used bicycle, not only because the services they offer, but also because of the topography that cities have. Another interesting example is this one, Go Vote by Scooter.
It's me again, Eva, the moderator. Antonio, you have double time right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please, yes,
just one last minute. So yes, in this one, you can go vote
really
by.
Sorry, but we don't have time. It must be the last sentence. Sorry. Thank you.
So you can go vote by scooter using an electric scooter to vote, and there's were free travels for the last elections. So you just had to enter the code I vote, meaning you vote, meaning I vote on the application, and you could go and vote for free. There are also more disruptive projects like the Stratio, Venium, Secret City Trails, live electric tours. And in the year that marks the 35th anniversary of Portugal's accession to the European project, there were a variety of initiatives to promote. You can see, for example, in here, a traditional tram in Porto and another in Lisbon, and even carriers from train that were covered in green that inspires a more sustainable Europe with a greater participation of everyone. So even the World Bike Tour, which is a huge cycling event and takes place annually in cities like Porto and Lisbon, this was a photo taken in 2020. And for those who say that big events should not be held during COVID, this one received the okay from World Health Organization, since WHO expressly recommends a bicycle for sports and mobility because it promotes physical distance, besides its obvious good health impact. So, as you were able to see, Portugal and its youth are committed in a transition towards greater investment and use of sustainable forms of transportation. I hope you enjoyed. I'm very sorry for the delay. No. And if you have any additional questions, or if you want to know more about those projects that I just mentioned but I didn't detail, please send me an email and I can spread information even more.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your lecture, for all the information about Portuguese invention to sustainable mobility for children and youth. Thank you so much, Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we get back to Miss Alexandra Dörfler. As I promised to you, Alexandra, she's a representative of the Department of Active Mobility and Mobility Management in the Federal Ministry for Climate Protection here in Austria. Alexandra, mobility management for youth, how does it work?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. You can hear and see me. Perfect. Good morning from the warm Vienna. I will talk about the initiative Climate Active for Youth Mobility, and it's for youth mobility that is to school, so we call it like extracurricular youth mobility. Maria has told some minutes before about the children and youth mobility for children and youth that go to school, and I will talk about the other part. I'm presenting the Federal Ministry for Climate Action in Vienna, and there I'm in the Department for Active Mobility and Mobility Management. So why is youth mobility so important? We have heard a lot about the importance. I would like to stress the experiences, the environmental mobility and the independent mobility. We see that experiences during childhood and adolescence have a particular significant influence on the mobility behavior as adults. And young people are by nature environmentally, environmentally mobile, and thus also a role model for climate-friendly mobility behavior, which should be maintained even after they have reached driving license age. And we also know that independent mobility is one of the top issues among young people. There is an increased need for action, as we all know, especially in rural regions, because young people without a driver's license often can't get from one place to another. So the Climate Active Mobile Program has been addressing the issue of youth mobility since already 2010 through a variety of measures, and is cooperating with many young youth organizations and their umbrella associations. So what measures have we done in the last around 11 years? We support training courses, which are called Youth Mobile Coach courses. They should strengthen the competences of youth workers and other multipliers in the field of green mobility. We give financial support for youth mobility projects. There are out-of-school youth facilities which we support financially for the implementation of an on-site youth mobility projects. We have funded already more than 120 youth projects, and more than 17,000 young people have been addressed. So this is quite a big number, I think. We have also funded intersectoral roundtables for the sectors of mobility, environment, and youth, in order to strengthen the cooperation between these different departments on the topic of youth mobility. And there we have developed concrete measures in these round tables. So what are the next steps within our initiative? We try to combine the program Maria Zögernitz has already talked about in the morning, which is the children and youth friendly mobility, and this program to get a real huge program and to put our forces together, to have forces and funding together, and to really try to support and to foster children and youth, child and youth friendly mobility. For this, we also plan to install a national platform on child and youth friendly mobility, which means putting all the stakeholders from the environment sector, from the health sector and the youth sector together. Stakeholders means the administration level and also the experts, and to really work on a good program and good initiatives for children and young people. So summing up, I would like to say that promotion of clean, climate-friendly and active mobility creates a real win-win situation also for young people, for children, for citizens, for health, for environment, economy, and of course for mobility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you for this lecture. Thank you very much. Our next speaker now is Barbara Reider. Barbara, can you hear us? Can you see us? Yes, you can. Do it. Use projects in Austria in the context of klimaaktiv mobil youth. This is about youth work and climate protection in practice. And the most important message is the little things are very important, isn't it?
Yes. So, thank you. Hello from Lower Austria. My name is Barbara Reider. I'm a social worker, youth worker, and I'm in a functional leadership of Südrand, Mobile Jugendarbeit Reisen, and Streetwork Pilachtal. I will refer a little bit to the presentation of Alexandra Dörfler and will give you an insight of practical work concerning youth mobility and climate protection. So our organization Jugend und Lebenswelt runs several youth facilities like outreach facilities, a youth counseling project, and a therapeutic climbing project. Our organization is a stakeholder of private child and youth welfare in Austria. Our target group are juveniles aged between 12 and 23 years old, and we offer casework, counseling, outreach, youth and commonwealth-oriented projects. So within the projects and activities, we pick up topics concerning young people. Mobility, climate protection and climate change are some of them. Especially in rural regions, mobility is a really big issue among young people. For example, the reachability of schools, trainings, or leisure facilities. So in our organization, we realize youth mobility projects and climate protection projects since 2011. And we now can look back at a wide range of different activities around youth mobility and climate protection. I will show you some of them. So we have been started with so-called bike kitchens, workshops to repair bikes and to check bike equipment if it's within the road traffic regulations. So a lot of people have bikes. Most of them use climate-friendly transport until the age of 16. Alexandra Dörfler talked about it. In these projects, the main topic is raising awareness of climate-friendly transport. So one of the results. The next one is collecting trash in the community. Is a really efficient group activity. So you can start a team challenge. For example, the winner of the day is the group which have collected the biggest pile of rubbish. It's a lot of fun and a kind of competition or battle. And at the same time, it's raising and building awareness of littering. Next slide, please. In our work, we try to integrate climate-friendly transport. We try to integrate it in our work, activities and projects. So whenever it's possible, we use public transport for our activities. We offer climate-friendly trips by foot, action bounds, and so on. Next slide, please. A long-term project is our restyling the train station at Dreisenmarkt. Dreisen is a community in Lower Austria. Together with young people and the Federal Railways Company, we restyle the train station every few years. So next one. We offer workshops, different workshops, for example, mobility checks. So what transport or form of transport do I use? We do cooking with regional and biological products, or offer workshops to build mobile repair units for bike kitchens. So the next is our nature experiences. Nature experiences raises awareness of the importance to protect nature and Mother Earth. Outdoor survival camps, climbing a mountain, watching animals or nature processes, all these experiences are really fascinating, not only for young people. These are experience with all kind of senses. So in the pandemic, we noticed that young people are fed up with digital platforms, online gaming, and so on. They go outside and search for freedom, maybe an indicator of spending a lot of time with homeschooling in the pandemic. So, and we continue our engagement in youth mobility and climate change projects. You can see here a project of the youth facility Streetwork Pilachtal, which runs youth work in 5 communities in the Pilachtal Valley. We've got an old wagon from one of the communities. It's located at a train station, and now we modify this wagon into a youth club or youth center, outside as well as inside. It's a youth center. Young people can reach absolutely climate friendly with the train from all over the Pilachtal Valley. So in general, the results of all these activities are raising awareness of climate friendly transport and climate protection, getting knowledge about climate friendly mobility and climate protection, and ideas to integrate in daily routine. When we talk about mobility and climate change, it's all about the question of how to integrate this topic. So we try to integrate this topic in youth work. We have the experience that all of these small things you do with young people are an important step to integrate in daily routine. So youth workers as role models for climate-friendly transport and climate protection. As a youth work organization, we don't have that much financial support to run big projects. We don't have that much time to really to run really big projects or because of our other tasks like casework and counseling. But that's not that important, because climate protection starts on a small scale. It's all about being active alone, with others, in private contexts or in work. No matter if these are small things you do or big projects, all these activities, and really activities, give you a sense of doing something useful. Being active means you can be a part of it. You're a mover, you're a doer, who can change the world. So what we know is that different positive experiences of being active can strengthen one's senses of coherence and self-efficiency. These are important competences for the whole life. So strengthen these competences means to be able to face future challenges. So a win-win situation when to face climate crisis. It's all about the question of what can I do to be a part of it, to be a part of change, a so-called win-win for the future. Thank you.
Barbara, thank you very much. Thank you for this presentation and thank you for your work. We appreciate that very much. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Our next topic is now the outcomes of the Youth Forum. And I'd like to welcome Ms. Cosima Pilz. Wonderful. Good morning. Cosima,
good morning.
We can hear you. We can see you from the Ministerial Center of Environmental Education. Cosima, you are a pedagogue and an expert in youth mobility. And you accompanied the Youth Forum in the framework of the PEP. And yeah, the first question is for sure, how did it work?
Okay, thank you very much, Eva. I have to make an announcement. At first, we don't exactly know if a youth delegate from Malta is joining the side event. And if he or she is here, then a very warm welcome to you. And we are happy that you will follow us. If you would like to make a contribution, feel free to use the chat, please. Because we heard that there is also a delegation from Malta here, and we don't know if he is here in the chat or here in the room. So this was my first announcement. The second is usually I'm working and managing the Youth Mobility Climate Active Mobility Youth Mobility Program. So what you hear from Alexandra and Barbara, I'm managing this program. But now I'm in a different function here. And I will talk about a little bit about the youth participation process which I've moderated and designed together with Florian Sturm from Loop 3. Youth participation within the WHO Environment and Health process has a long tradition in Austria, starting 2004 with the European Children's Environment and Health Action Plan at the Budapest Conference. Member states were asked to elaborate national children's environment health action plans, and so did also Austria. In this document, young people were also able to bring in their own concerns. This process was followed by a series of national and international youth initiatives that focused on youth trainings and the subsequent implementation of youth projects. One milestone was the Youth Conference in Vienna 2016 with the outcome of the Vienna Youth Declaration, which was presented to the 6th Conference on Environment and Health 2017 in Ostrava. Due to its great success, youth participation has become a cornerstone also in the PEP program. So we are very happy that now in the PEP program there are also 2 youth representatives who have been also involved in the ongoing meetings of the PEP. So it's a big success. And now I'm happy to tell you more about the virtual national preparation workshops and the 3 international youth forums, which were designed, as I already said, and moderated by me and Mr. Florian Sturm from Loop 3. Before we start, we had 2 preparation workshops in Austria. We had 9 participants. The time was very short to have. The time was very short to find more participants because of the postponement of this conference. 7 persons were from Fridays for Future. We had 1 UN youth delegate and 1 EU youth delegate from the Austrian National Youth Council. We have some technical inputs from representatives of the Department Active Mobility and Mobility Management from the Federal Ministry for Climate Protection in Austria. And we made a kind of selection of the most important topics based on the draft of the ministerial paper of the PEP. It was active mobility, mobility management, public transport and digitalization. We have a group work, discussions and exchange of ideas, although we have it all in virtual form, but it, thanks to Florian Sturm, it worked out very well also to have some work together. The next. And then came the 3 international youth forums, which were held in April. We had 28 participants from 13 countries. Each forum had 1 topic, so one of these 3 topics. We had inputs at first. Always, it was the same structure. We had first the inputs of various experts. And on the 3rd youth forum, we had also a visit from the Austrian Federal Minister for Climate Action, Ms. Lore Gewessler, and from the chair of the PEP, Mr. Robert Thaler. We are very happy that they joined us, and we had also a discussion, and we had also some questions from Fridays for Future who could be answered by the ministry. We had also in this youth forums group works, discussions and exchange of ideas. We make the group works in different, mixing different countries. And at the end, we listed and scored the key implementation initiatives from the youth perspective. So they make a kind of listing. And this result brings the outcome, will be implemented in the youth position paper, which should be the outcome of the 3 international youth forums. The youth position paper is not already finished. It's under construction, but it will be presented on 18 May 2021 at 12:30 at the Ministerial Conference by 2 representatives of Fridays for Future and the National Youth Council. And now, the last, I'm looking forward to listening to the participants. I think it's much more interesting than just to listen to me.
No, Cosima. That was really interesting. Thank you very much. And you have to stay right now because we need you. We'd like to discuss a little bit. But let me present the first participant. As you said, it's Milan Calones. I hope it's correct how I spell your name. And Milan, can you tell us about what are the outcomes of the forum in mobility management?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Eva, for giving me the word. So yes, I was one of the participants in the youth forums, especially the one around mobility management. I come from Belgium, by the way, so this is from Brussels, where I live. So when it comes to mobility management, I think the first thing we need to do is changing the mindset of people, young people, but actually the whole society. And the first step is basically showing what is going wrong. We need to show the urgency. That's also a bit the message from Fridays for Future that I want to share. And one of these examples or these ideas is, for example, showing the problem of cars in cities when it comes to noise, when it comes to their climate change impact, when it comes to space that they use. There are a lot of cool ideas that you can reuse the space used for cars, for example, by creating parking lots for bicycles, by creating urban gardening projects and these kind of things. We would also like to see a pollution ranking every day, for example, in the news or together with the weather forecast, that you can see how polluted your city is. Or for example, when you want to book a trip to somewhere with a train or with a shared car or with a plane, that you can see how many CO2 emissions that you actually emit, and maybe realize that sometimes there are better options to choose than a plane, for example. So these are some of the first ideas to show what is going wrong. But then we also need to communicate about the alternatives. We see that sometimes people don't really know what the alternatives are in their neighborhoods, especially, for example, in rural areas where people don't have a bus stop right at their door. So we definitely need to communicate about that, and also about the advantages. For example, when you take a train instead of a plane, there are actually quite a lot of advantages, and we need to inspire people to actually make them use these eco-friendly alternatives. We also want to include health, mobility, and environment in education. And I think in this webinar, we've seen already quite some interesting examples about the cycling courses, about projects in youth work that are very inspiring and exciting to see. And yeah, we should just start from a very, very young age to ensure that all young people have good experiences with eco-friendly transportation. So a bit the baseline is actually that we should make active mobility cool and attractive, and organize several things such as free cycling and walking tours in cities, also outside cities. Organize pilot projects for car-free cities and organize car-free days where you usually see a lot of people on the streets. It's always very nice, so we should just do this more. And actually the goal is then that cars do not longer have their status symbol, that they do not longer represent freedom, but it's actually the active mobility that represents freedom. Something else to make eco-friendly transportation more attractive is create mobility hubs where these different kind of transportation come together, so you can use the multimodality. But what is important that you also think about young people when designing these mobility hubs, that you create it in their neighborhoods where they need to go, where they are, and that you also create it with them, that it's a nice space to meet with their friends. And I think we've also seen previous presentation some cool ideas to actually design these kind of mobility hubs, so include young people when doing that. And then, well, one of the last points is, of course, it's also about money, unfortunately. Well, for example, creating a youth mobility fund would be very useful to actually support youth mobility projects. There are so many great ideas, but they do not always have the funding, so we should definitely need that. And it's also just important that all young people can afford bicycles. So if they don't, then we need to fund to support them financially. And then maybe the last point is just participation. So I think definitely on a local level, we should create citizen panels where citizens and especially young people, so we should definitely encourage young people to be part of that, where they can just talk about the decisions about mobility in their cities and how to improve it. So I think these were the main outcomes.
Milan, thank you so much. Thank you. Fine, but it was great. The next speaker is Katrin Olchick. Katrin, can you hear us? Can you see us? Yeah, you're already in. Katrin, it's about the outcomes of the forum Active Mobility and Health. Can you tell us more about it? Katrin is not in anymore. Okay, so we tried to reach Anurag Koyada. Anurag, can you hear? Ah, okay. Anurag, you have to wait a little bit. Katrin is here. Thank you, Katrin. You can hear us? You can hear
Hello,
me?
yes. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you. We can see you. That's wonderful. Katrin, where are you from?
So I'm from Poland. I'm living in Poznań, Poland. It's towards the western side.
Wow.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm very happy to be with you all.
And we are happy that you are joining us, and we want to know what are the outcomes of the forum Active Mobility and Health. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. Before I discuss our thoughts and position on active mobility, I just want to sum up why active mobility is so important. Nowadays, integrating physical activity into our lives has been more and more tough. And active mobility is such a great way to bring the sufficient amount of physical activity into our lives. So from preventing diabetes to cardiovascular death and cancer, it's just very crucial. The World Health Organization shows that, for example, in Austria, only about 17% of children and adolescents exercise enough. Guidelines recommend at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a day for children and adolescents. So now let's talk about ways that we could bring these numbers up. During our forum, we found a few key thoughts on how to make active mobility more attractive, accessible, making it the most common way of transportation, and not only in cities, but in rural areas. In Europe, about 30% of our population lives in rural areas, so that's quite a lot. We should always think about pedestrians and cyclists first when planning these kind of things. So first of all, redistribution of space in cities. Right now, cars and parking spaces for cars take up more than enough space. We should promote city design that invites people to spend time in public places. So minimize public space used for parking slots, maybe by making them more expensive, planting trees instead, giving people a discounted or free scooter if they give up their car, for example, make some incentive, and restricting car use near schools. So this would promote children and parents driving their children to take bicycles or scooters walking to school. Another idea we had was to expand the infrastructure for active mobility and make it more pleasant, visually pleasant, and easy to use. So one of our main priorities is safety improvement, like safe crossings. This is crucial. Also, red light signals for cyclists. This is one of the things that would prevent amounts of accidents 100%. Also, it's important to build and expand protected bike lanes with adequate width. And we see that in some cities and countries already, which is really nice. Making walking more attractive would be possible by making more pleasing infrastructure. For example, family-friendly colors, would interest kids more, protection from weather, like planting trees, enough space, so maybe a walking lane, a cycling lane, and some benches just to enjoy the nature around. So all in all, with that being said, it would also be important to link public transportation with active mobility. For example, connecting walking, cycling to bus and tram, for example. And as Milan mentioned, some of these things such as funding of active mobility. Financial aid is crucial here for accessibility, especially in poverty areas. Some kind of discount for bicycles, skateboards, scooters, especially in rural areas, we have more poverty, and budget and funding for infrastructures of cities and communities. So these were some of the main things that we discussed and proposed. At the end, I would just like to say that we as individuals have the power to change the statistics and to call on legislative leaders to make active mobility a priority. I hope you all are inspired to take out your bikes and walking shoes after hearing this presentation. Thank you.
You inspired us. Thank you very much, Katrine. Danke. Thank you. Now we get back to UK, Great Britain. Anurag Koyada, can you hear us? Can you see me? And no, so it's about the outcomes of the forum, public transport and digitalization. Anurag, hello and good morning. It's a very late good morning.
Okay,
the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Anurag Koyada, and I'm speaking now from London, United Kingdom. Specifically, I'll be talking about the Youth Forum about public transport and digitalization, specifically about what we want to see in the next 5 years as sort of part of the youth generation. And this is a very broad area, but we think that overall digitalization of public transport and transport operations is what is going to be able to enable society to most quickly and efficiently set new benchmark in areas like use of lower emission transportation and increased accessibility, and overall just long-term use of healthier modes of transport. And specifically, we find that there's 3 areas that need the most support in the coming years. One is that we want to really use digitalization and just promote accessibility for different parties. So for example, a big stakeholder group here is that of disabled individuals. We feel that for them, by using apps that could provide additional information, such as whether in different hubs of transportation, where there are, for example, for wheelchair individuals, where all the ramps are, where all the different accessibility points are. This would be very streamlined with an app. We also think that by just generally providing trainings for people like bus drivers and traffic planners, there'd be more sensitivity for issues like different like disabled restrictions. And we think that this is a very important issue. But we also think, like Catherine said last, that rural areas also need a lot of support in terms of increasing their accessibility. And one, we have to start by providing more infrastructure. So physically creating more opportunities for them to access public transport. And we feel that by doing so, then it will naturally follow that you can use digitalization there too, and increase their use of just general data that is available about carbon emissions, about different modes of transport, etc. We also think that it's critical to expand timetables of current existing modes of transport, specifically having additional night lines and those can you guys still hear me? Okay, yeah. So yeah, we want to have additional light lines, and those with security for younger generations, because generally for things like safe parking for things like bicycles, or just when it gets late night, sometimes there isn't as much security, and we'd like that to be increased. And second, we think that another very important use of digitalization could be offering a standardized mobility app for all of Europe to provide information on things like connections and ticketing for all modes of transport, because right now there are kind of siloed systems for traveling on trains versus buses or bike renting. And by hosting all these in one location, as well as not only having filters for factors like price that was mentioned before, also having information comparing carbon emissions and overall just having all this information aggregated in one place, we think would do a lot to increase adoption of healthier modes of transport. And the last thing we think is important is that as society progresses and with digitalization, we implement new technologies such as sensors, Internet of Things, and machine learning, all these new technologies to modernize public urban transport. We think that we also have to be cautious about the fact that this will change job profiles, and some people may lose their jobs, but most likely their jobs will just require different skills, and this could have very big consequences in terms of that much retraining will be needed and much reskilling will be needed also. So we think that not only should focus be put on digitalization and advancing public transport, but also on advancing education and reskilling for workers in the sector as well. That way you can maximize job security, health, and safety for them too, and really that way best encourage adoption of healthy transport.
Anurag, thank you so much. Thank you for your words and your lecture. Thank you. Last but not least, we have 2 more persons in this panel. This Ms. Miriam Egger and Verena Martelschweiger, also participants of the Youth Forum. We have 10 minutes more for this webinar. Our time schedule is we're not in time anymore. The timetable, and we are talking about now about the newspaper. The newspaper, it's a very important paper, but it's not finished yet. But can you tell us about the newspaper and what we can expect of it?
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Super.
Yeah, as it has been already said, we are currently in the process of finishing the paper. And it will cover the 3 topics which have just been introduced: mobility management, active mobility, and public transport. And it will include a mission statement, which states the ground principles we wish for. And this mission statement is about reframing how we need to think about traffic systems. And I agree with my previous speakers that each action counts. And as individuals, we can reach a lot, but still the whole planning and thinking about traffic has to change. And we agreed on this during these forums. Me and Miriam, we were part of the editorial team, and we enjoyed our additional meetings after the youth forums, where we reflected on the outcomes and structured them. And we would like to share that we found that it was a great opportunity to have this international exchange. And yeah, it was helpful to think outside the box and get new impressions from other countries and meet new people, especially during the pandemics when it's hard to meet other people. It was a very nice opportunity to have a good time together and be productive. And I think all the participants, I can speak for all of them when I say that we wish for the same things: more independency from cars, especially for young people, and safe, healthy, and climate-friendly transport. And what you expect now, I will hand over to Miriam.
Thanks, Verena. I hope you can hear me well. And I want to start with that I believe I can speak of all participants of the International Youth Forums if I'm saying that we are all having high hopes for mobility in the future. And we all agree that mobility has to become more healthy and environmentally friendly, and that all as soon as possible. That means not in a month, not tomorrow, but today. And all these ideas will be written down in the youth position paper, and this paper we will hand over in the context of the ministerial conference next week on the 18th of May. And we expect that this position paper is taken very seriously because it covers urgent matters, as an example, the climate crisis, or fair and inclusive transport systems for young people. And therefore, we just expect that we are not handing over this youth position paper and it just ends up in the next drawer. On the contrary, we wish that youth mobility is one of the top concerns in every participating country, because young people and their needs are just often overseen. And therefore, I want to end with that we as young people just want to be included in decision making and want possibilities to contribute to the reach of the common goals for mobility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Verena. Thank you, Miriam. And thank you to all the participants of the youth forums and the outcomes. Thank you very much. And we can join when the paper is going to be handed over to the Minister of Health and Minister of Climate Action, Mr. Mückstein and Ms. Gewessler. It's on the 18th of May, as you said, and it's there's going to be a live stream here on this conference tool and on the platform. And yes, we will join it, hopefully. Thank you so much. Thank you. Last but not least, it's time for Mr. Thaler again, Robert Thaler. Robert, I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. And I'm going to ask you as the chair of the PEP, and we heard that you have also joined the youth forum. What are your impressions? What are your wishes for the future? Overall, you heard during this morning and from the young people, the participants of the Youth Forum.
Okay, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. We can see you.
I must say I'm deeply impressed, and I feel much younger now. So you made this day more brightly than before. I think all the ideas you mentioned here, the young colleagues, are very, very valuable. And I just want to say that these, like Milan said, changing of the mindset of people is absolutely an important thing. And to believe in facts and not in fakes, so to say. And the PEP is working a lot on this. We will launch a brochure on the facts and figures led by Netherlands. So that's also maybe of interest for you on Wednesday in a webinar in the morning at 9 o'clock, presenting the major facts and figures on transport. So changing the mindset, it's important. The mobility behavior of ourselves, it's important. Everybody of us is a part of the problem, so it can also be part of the solution and should be part of the solution. And that the second thing what impressed me was that it's about freedom. And I think, of course, when I was young, I traveled to Europe with Interrail. It was fantastic, using night trains instead of hotels, very cheap, getting familiar to a lot of other countries and met other people, fantastic. So this has totally changed now. The generation is used to planes. So the renaissance of public transport or trains are, I think, a crucial issue. And especially for traveling now during the pandemics, this is a big challenge, getting trust back in public transport. So it's about freedom, and this means the freedom to have choices. And this was lastly pointed out now, the independency from cars. This is, I think, one of the major messages, because what we want to live is in a mobility system which provides choices. So if I want to go with my bike, I want to find a nice infrastructure for that. Or if I want to walk, I don't want to be disturbed by a lot of heavy metal on the streets, so to say. And if I want to use an electric car, I want to plug in somewhere. Or if I use public transport, I want to have easy access by digital information, what also Anurag told me. And Catherine said rightly, it's all about the redistribution of space in our cities. We have to change our architecture, our urban design, get rid of this Charter of Athens of the 1928, which divides all the daily issues, and we have to find a new way of how our cities, or a renaissance of a human way of how our cities should look like. So it's a real big challenge. And then ahead of us, this technological revolution. It can help. Digitization can help a lot in public transport because you don't have to read timetables, you just have an app. And this idea of having an app of all over Europe of mobility, wonderful. This is, I think, also a crucial point, that digitalization does not mean that you change the systems in 1 hour, but you have to work on all these data issues. It's a long story. So I'm very impressed. I think the idea was, and this has a tradition in Austria and during my chairmanship of the PEP, that I always promoted the involvement of young people, because I think we are in governments and we have to listen to them. We have all been young, we are still young in our hearts, and I think very positively welcome this outcome. And therefore, I think it's important that the young people have a voice in the PEP, not just here and now, but also in the PEP as a process, because the PEP is a process of 3 sectors. It's unique and because of tripartite collaborations of 3 sectors, and it will continue. So this is a milestone, the conference, not the end. It should be the beginning for more and even deeper involvement of young people. So that's, I think, would be a fantastic sustainable outcome of our Viennese conference. So please stay inspired and bring in your ideas. We will, of course, we can confirm that we will take them seriously on board. So thanks a lot for your active contribution. I think it's absolutely important that you have a voice, and we want to give you that voice. Thank you.
Robert, thank you
And
so
stay,
much. Thank you.
stay young
Yes.
in mind.
Yeah.
Don't,
As you do.
don't. Yes.
As you do.
Stay young in mind.
Yeah, Robert, thank you so much. Thank you for your conclusion. We wish you a successful conference, and thank you for your participation here at this webinar. And this was the closing words, the conclusion of Robert Thaler. We are finished right now. Thank you so much. Thanks for your attention. And thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you to all our speakers and all the participants. And I'm going to invite you to further webinars on the platform. Just join it and be interested. And you can also have a look on the virtual exhibition. Many interesting projects and companies are going to present themselves and our initiatives. And another thing is the newspaper that's going to be handed over on the 18th of May. There will be a live stream on 12:30. It's the newspaper that's going to be given and handed out to the Minister of Health, Mr. Mückstein, and the Minister of Climate Action, Leonore Gewessler. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day. We are going to go out to the sun. Thank you and bye-bye.